that got everybody's attention. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sounds like nobody's paying attention. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's more like it. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidil Mursaleen Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in ma ba'd. So to get started, for those of you who would like to carry on conversations, please go outside and do that. Jazakallah khair. If you're wanting to learn more about this, then please stay tuned. Gentleman over there in the corner, this is for you. You should listen. You could save a life. So today's talk is about how to deal with emergencies in the masjid, medical emergencies. And for those of you who don't know, we actually have a team here at this masjid, which you see here on the board, called the Emergency Medical Response Team. This is actually the 10th year that we've had the team, alhamdulillah, here at the masjid. It's a team of trained people in our community. Some of them are medical professionals, others are not. And they're trained in CPR, first aid, and basic emergency response. Emergencies can happen at any time. Everyone here either knows somebody or has experienced some kind of medical emergency, whether at home, at work, out grocery shopping, at a festival, here in the masjid even. And it's very important to know how to have a coordinated response to be able to deal with these emergencies in an organized manner. Otherwise, what ends up happening is the patient gets harmed. The person you're trying to help gets harmed. And what may have been something that is treatable and savable becomes something that's not. And that's not what we want. I wanted to show you this video, if the audio will work. We don't know if the audio is going to work, but this is from an initiative in Wisconsin called Project Adam. And it was started by a family whose son was playing basketball in high school in the 1990s, who suddenly collapsed in the basketball court, on the basketball court in the gym. So I'm going to try to see if this will work with the audio. Give me 1 second, please.
Get a shot, take it.
The tragedy you've just witnessed, for me, is very real. In a gym very much like this one, I was sitting in the stands on January 22nd, 1999, watching my son Adam play basketball when he suddenly collapsed and died. In his case, there was no defibrillator on site, and as a result, he was denied the best possible chance for survival. The hope through Project Adam is that the next child who suffers an incident like my son Adam will in fact have the best chance of survival, where my son did not.
Did everybody get a chance to hear that? That's a very powerful video. So this high school student who was a star on his basketball team and who was kind of at the peak at the beginning of his life collapsed in the middle of a basketball game, and his life could have been saved if they had a coordinated response, if they knew how to deal with an emergency situation at that time, and if they had the right equipment to deal with that emergency situation. Something very important to think about. So let's talk about what are kind of the types of emergency situations that we can expect to see medically in a masjid? What are kind of the rules and regulations in terms of laws that we may have to deal with? And what type of response do we have here? And then how can you help as members of the community? So the first thing I'll draw your attention to is this OSHA regulation. OSHA is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It's a federal agency that kind of regulates rules related to the workplace, federal rules. And basically it says that if you don't have a healthcare facility immediately close to where you work, it is an obligation on that facility, whether it's a place of work, whether it's a place of worship, whether it's a school, to have people trained on how to provide a coordinated response for first aid, and also to have adequate supplies that can address situations up to the level of training that you have for these first aid folks. So the question is, why should we have a coordinated response? Well, like I said, we face many different kinds of emergencies. I know, mashallah, we have a lot of healthcare professionals here. We have a lot of physicians and nurses and physical therapists, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, pharmacists, mashallah, but not all of us are in the medical field. That being said, it's important to understand that people have a lot of different medical issues. Some kids may have allergies, they may have asthma, they may need to use inhalers like this. If I can get it out of my pocket, I'll show you. An inhaler like this, right? If somebody has an allergic reaction that's life-threatening, they may need an EpiPen to help treat them and potentially save their life. We have a lot of folks amongst our elders who may have heart disease. They may have a heart attack. God forbid, right? Somebody may have a stroke. Their blood sugar may run low, especially with Ramadan coming up. And if they're taking sugar medicines to treat their diabetes and not eating, their sugar may drop. And then when kids are playing, when our young folks are playing, they may dislocate something, break something. Somebody may bleed. And then God forbid, if we have an active shooter or some attacker, people will have trauma. It's important to know how to deal with these situations in a coordinated manner. For example, heart attacks today in the U.S. are amongst the leading cause of death, non-cancer death in the United States. If you're able to get somebody to the hospital in the right amount of time, you may save their lives. If their heart stops and you can do CPR, they may have a better chance of surviving. In fact, if you look at the medical literature, every minute that you go without blood flow to your brain, the chances of meaningful survival, being able to recover and do things, goes down by about 7 to 10%. Every minute you're without oxygen. So you can see that it's really important to have a coordinated response. Let me present you with two scenarios. So let's say we're in a facility and there's no coordinated response and people don't know how to deal with emergencies. And let's say somebody collapses. One of two things is going to happen. Everybody's either going to stand there and watch and be like, well you're going to take care of it or you're going to take care of it. I don't know how to take care of this. And then nobody's going to take care of anything. Or everybody's going to jump on the person and be like, well, bring him some water. Well, we should check their pulse, check their breathing, check the sugar, shake them, rub them. Nobody's going to know what to do. And then somebody randomly is going to call 911. The ambulance is going to get here and be like, what's going on? Where's the person? This has actually happened. This has actually happened. As opposed to if you have a coordinated response. If you have a team where you have people who know what their roles and responsibilities are. My job is to write down what's happening. My job is to get the equipment, the first aid bag, the defibrillator, the glucometer to check the sugar, the blood pressure cuff. My job is to call 911 and meet them and bring them to where the person is. My job is to make sure the scene is safe, that nobody unnecessary is there crowding the situation. My job is to do CPR. My job is to check the patient. Everybody knows their roles. Everybody's practiced how to deal with these situations. Everybody knows how to communicate clearly, knows how to use radios to communicate, knows what the codes are, knows what the emergency plan is. And by the way, do you know that there is actually a plan that's established for medical emergencies here at the masjid? There's a coordinated response. And we have actually codes. So if you've ever worked in a hospital before, and I know a lot of you have, there are codes that we respond to, and they tell us what's going on. For example, in the hospital, code blue, in most hospitals, there are some hospitals like Methodist that don't have that, they have a different code. Code blue means cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest. Somebody's heart stopped or they've stopped breathing. You have to go in and start doing CPR. We have that as well. There's something called code red, there's a fire. Code silver, active shooter. Code gray, severe weather. So we have these systems in place, and we know what the response is. Now, it's important for the community to know about this too, which is why we're talking about this now. So when we have events, if you've noticed before, we have a tent set up when there's a festival or Eid prayer, and it'll say first aid on it. If you walk down the hall across from the cafe in the North Hall, you'll see the banner that says first aid. That's where our EMRT is based. And you'll know how to get a hold of us. A lot of times we'll either be wearing specific t-shirts or the vests. Our people that are on the team are trained in first aid, in these types of emergency response situations, and on how to do basic first aid and do CPR as well. It's important to realize that we operate with standards of care. We all know the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 32, the translation of the meaning of which is, the one who saves a life, it's as if he saved all of humanity. So above all else, preservation of life and safety is paramount. Safety of the providers, safety of the patient, scene safety. And then being able to provide the care based on the level of training that we have, and then knowing when to say, this is beyond my scope, I need to have the ambulance people come, 911, EMS, and hand over care to them to have the patient taken to the hospital. It's also used as a platform for all of the Memphis community to have these in place. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to, for lack of better words, export the program to Masjid As-Salam, Midtown Mosque, PVS. We were also starting with Masjid Rahman. We had started a little with Masjid Taqwa, not Taqwa, Masjid Muslimin. So the goal is to have this program in all of the masajid and to have defibrillators. For here, does anybody know, besides those who are on the team, where the defibrillators are in this building right now? Raise your hand if you know. SubhanAllah. All right. Does anybody know where the fire extinguishers are? Yeah. I see some sisters back there. One of the brothers. Nobody else knows where these are? SubhanAllah. So, extremely important to know where these things are. So, the two defibrillators that we have are right here. If you go immediately exit, walk back, entrance to Nasim Hall, right here where the sisters' stairs are, there are white boxes and there are signs above them that say AED. There's a red bag in there. That's the defibrillator. If you ever have to use it, you just pop it open and it'll start talking to you and tell you what to do, if none of the team members are here. Fire extinguishers are in the walls, in the cubbies, in different locations. There's one out here. There's one down there by the community room. It's important to know where these are. Where are the exits, right? Exits are here in the back. There are going to be more once the north side opens, inshallah. Very important to know. I just wanted to kind of share our structure for our team. We have the main person in charge of the masjid organization, then you have people under them. You have somebody who's responsible, everybody's responsible for knowing how to do CPR and first aid. Then you have people who are responsible for knowing how to document what's going on, somebody who's in charge of training, somebody in charge of getting the equipment when there's an emergency, maintaining scene safety, contacting EMS and talking to them, everybody has designated roles so that we know what to do when an emergency situation happens. We also have first aid kits. We have a kit for trauma, for bleeding, for musculoskeletal injuries, fractures, dislocations, for your average cuts and bruises, for minor burns, for insect stings, splinters, checking blood pressure, checking sugar. We have a rapid response bag. We have a code blue responding to cardiac arrest, a respiratory arrest bag. It's all located in the command post across from the cafe. Alhamdulillah, we also partner with local organizations like the Memphis Muslim Medical Clinic to do training sessions for first aid and educate folks about first aid. We also partner, in the past, we have with the University of Tennessee to do the certification with CPR, and with CBU to do the certification of the CPR and first aid. And alhamdulillah, we are present during Ramadan, during festivals, and Eid prayers, and we've also, alhamdulillah, been invited to volunteer at some of the St. Jude events as well, along with the Memphis Muslim Medical Clinic. So alhamdulillah, it's important to know what to do in emergency situations. There was going to be a class previously when the snow happened on CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. That's a federal program that's distributed at the local level, and it teaches average community members like us what to do in emergency situations, like if there's a natural disaster, if there's a gas leak, if there's a tornado, an earthquake, light search and rescue, team dynamics, and how to safely contact and conduct these types of rescue type things to the scope of the training. So if we're able to reschedule it, I highly encourage you to attend that. Also, if you're interested in joining the team, you don't have to be a medical person to join our first response team. We have some of our brothers and sisters here who are part of the team, back there and over here. With Ramadan coming up, it's especially important to have more people join the team. Because as you see, mashallah, we're continuing to grow. We need to have more people so that we can respond to emergencies. Last year, we had several emergencies during Ramadan and Eid prayer actually. Alhamdulillah, we were able to take care of them, but we really need more people to sign up. So if you're interested, please see me and let me know after the talk, inshallah. It's important to remember that we don't have an emergency room here or a medical clinic. We have basic first aid. If there are more serious emergencies, we're going to refer people to the hospital to get checked out. Important to remember that. The other important thing to remember is there are emergencies besides medical emergencies. And inshallah, as the year progresses, we're going to have more classes on how to deal with these responses. There are going to be workshops on the weekends. So be on the lookout for those if you'd be interested in training them. So we've had active shooter training before, last year. We haven't had any fire drills, but we can get training on that. And we should also know what to do in case of severe weather, because we do get tornadoes, right? For those of you who've gone to school here, you've had tornado drills, where you've had to duck and cover, basically do sajda in the corner, put your hands over your head, and shelter in place until the tornado's gone. So it's important to know what to do in these types of situations. We're also in a fault line, the New Madrid Fault. In fact, one of the biggest earthquakes in North American history happened in the early 1800s, about 200 miles north of here in Missouri, and made the Mississippi River flow backwards and created Reelfoot Lake. So we're in an earthquake zone, so it's important to know what to do when an earthquake happens. If we're in here praying and there's an emergency, do we continue praying, or do we take care of the emergency? That's something our shuyukh need to kind of expound upon. So if we have a coordinated response, if we have a team that's trained in how to deal with medical emergencies, natural disasters, active shooter, and these types of things, then we can help preserve life and safety, which is what matters most for our community. So if you're interested, please see me. You can also talk to Brother Samir and let us know if you'd like to join this particular team. There are some other initiatives as well. If you want to talk to Balanko about some of the other safety-related initiatives, he also leads those. So, shameless pitch, join our team. Potentially help save a life. Jazakumullah khair. That's all I've got for now. Does anybody have any questions about what we talked about? Brothers, going once, twice. Sisters, any questions? Okay, inshallah, stay tuned for more updates about training classes, about how to deal with emergency situations, and please see me if you're interested, especially if you're a regular for Isha and for Fajr. Please, I highly encourage you to join the team. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.